Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ohio EPA's 2022 Virtual Compliance Assistance Conference. My name is Helen Miller, and I'm with the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance here at Ohio EPA, and will be moderating this session, The Significance of NPDES Significant Noncompliance. Ohio EPA's 2022 Virtual Compliance Assistance Conference has 24 sessions over 2 weeks. Today, we have 3 sessions focusing on surface water. Registration information and a conference agenda are located on the Ohio EPA's conference webpage. Before we get started, we'd like to point your attention to one of today's environmental fun facts. On this slide, we're highlighting Ohio EPA's Wastewater Compliance Assistant Unit. The Compliance Assistant Unit, or CAU, is a non-regulatory program that provides free on-site assistance to smaller wastewater treatment plants. They work alongside local wastewater treatment plant staff to identify compliance issues and implement inexpensive and effective solutions. If you need help with your wastewater treatment plant, scan the QR code on this slide to get more information about this program. Next, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Lucy Moser, in our Division of Surface Water. Lucy started her career as a compliance coordinator at Ohio EPA in the Division of Surface Water in 2016. As the data steward for US EPA's Integrated Compliance Information System database, she manages Ohio's data uploads and monitors Ohio's data for accuracy, quality, and completeness. Lucy identifies trends and discrepancies in Ohio's data and conducts regular data cleanup exercises. In addition to her duties as data steward, she assists Ohio's numerous compliance initiatives, which include outreach and education of the NPDES regulated community. We also have Donna Dessois and Scott Sheeran behind the scenes answering questions. And now I'm turning over the microphone to Lucy.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Helen, and good afternoon, everyone. As Helen said, my name's Lucy Moser, and I'm a compliance coordinator for the Ohio EPA in the Division of Surface Water. I've been with the agency for a little over 6 years now, and I'm really excited to have you all here today. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right. You may be wondering why we call this presentation the significance of significant noncompliance. Well, S&C is important for a number of reasons. First, the acute nature of S&C has the potential to pose a serious threat to human health and the environment. And in addition, facilities that are not in compliance, especially significant noncompliance, can become a higher priority for inspections and enforcement by both Ohio EPA and US EPA. So because of these factors, it's important to understand the criteria for S&C and whether your site is in S&C or how to proactively avoid S&C and how to return to compliance once you're in S&C. This is what brings us here today to talk about S&C. So on today's agenda, there are 3 main topics that I'll be covering. First, we'll go over the US EPA/state NPDES SNC National Compliance Initiative, otherwise known as the SNC-NCI. Next, we'll go over exactly what is SNC. And lastly, we'll go over how to find out if your facility is in SNC. So with that said, let's take a quick poll before we get started. I really wanted to know who's joining us today. So let's take this poll and find out who's in our audience. The poll asks, are you an NPDES permit owner, operator, or consultant representing a NPDES facility? You can select permit owner, operator of an NPDES facility, or consultant representing a facility. And you can also select more than one answer.
Okay, I have launched the poll. So please make your selection. And again, for our OpCert folks, if you can maximize your screen to full size, that should assist you in being able to participate in the poll. And I know that some people are logging on at the last minute. Please note that there is a PDF copy of the PowerPoint slides included in the documents. If you click on the document icon, you can download a copy of that for your personal library. And it looks like most people have made their selection. If you have not, please wrap it up and make your final vote. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the result. There you go, Lucy.
All right, thank you, Helen. So it looks like we have 20% of you are permit owners, 46% are operators of a NPDES facility, and 35% are consultants representing a facility. So that's a fairly even spread. Pretty good representation, so, which is great, because there's a lot of content in this presentation that I think all of you will find helpful, whether you're an owner, operator, or consultant. So, moving right along, I wanted to talk about the NPDES SNC NCI first. It's important to understand the SNC NCI, which has served as a foundation and motive for much of our compliance activities and has served as our guide for inspection targeting and our outreach over the past 5 years. So to summarize, the SNC NCI is a collaborative effort between the states and the federal US EPA. And our main goal of the SNC NCI was to reduce the number of facilities in SNC by 50% over a 5-year period, as well as ensure that the most serious SNC violations are timely and appropriately addressed. The SNC NCI began in 2018, and we just reached this 5-year goal of cutting our SNC rate in half. So as you can see in the blue figure, when we started this initiative in 2018, the national SNC rate was right around 20.3%. But now, after 5 years of diligent hard work by the states, US EPA, and the regulated community, the national SNC rate has been cut in half and is now hanging around 10%, which is over a 50% reduction. And similarly, Ohio had a starting rate of 21% in 2018. But now, 5 years into this initiative, we have also cut our SNC rate in half and are now sitting at about a 10.3% SNC rate, which is also over a 50% reduction. Now, this 50% reduction in SNC is no small feat. At the beginning of this initiative, a lot of us thought that cutting our SNC was going to be a very lofty goal, and we had a hard time seeing how it could even be possible. But now that it's 2022 and we're 5 years into this, we're really proud to say that we reached our goal, and we couldn't be more pleased with the success of this initiative. And I really have to thank all of you guys, the regulated community, for playing a key role in this success. It wouldn't have been possible without all the hard work you've done to stay in compliance and your quick action in addressing SNC as it arises. I also want to add that all the hard work done by Ohio and a regulated community has not only greatly reduced our SNC rate, but has also had a major impact on the nation's SNC rate. We have a very large permitted universe in Ohio, and I believe we account for 7% of the entire nation's universe. So any changes in Ohio's SNC rate, whether good or bad, can really be felt in the nation's SNC rate. So this made Ohio one of the major contributors to the national SNC rate, and all of our hard work was very impactful on the nation's numbers. So, speaking of numbers, you might be wondering why US EPA selected the NPDES program for the NCI and not any of the other programs like air or hazardous waste. Well, back in 2016, the e-reporting rule was ruled out by US EPA, which is a rule that requires NPDES regulated facilities to report their information electronically rather than filing paper reports. So because of this e-reporting rule, discharge monitoring reports, otherwise known as DMRs, were now being submitted electronically, which for a nation of about 45,000 NPDES permitted facilities, this resulted in a very large data set of sampling results that could be used to measure statistics and conduct analysis. Other programs like AIR, RCRA, Haz Waste, Solid Waste, etc., don't have as much of a complete and accurate data set to work with as we do in the NPDES program, which is why the NPDES program was the best candidate for the SNC NCI. Our huge and exceptionally accurate data set made it easier to measure any changes and improvement in the SNC rate, as well as identify any specific trends, issues, or areas that need additional attention. So once US EPA had selected the NPDES program as its lucky candidate for the SNC-NCI, Ohio and all the other states each had to come up with a unique plan to address SNC and to figure out how to achieve this 50% reduction in the SNC rate over 5 years. As I mentioned on the last slide, Ohio's permitted universe is very large. And with that, we collect millions and millions of data points each year. And with this amount of data, we inherently encounter some data issues on occasion, whether it be data glitches or data transfer issues on our end, or whether it's due to non-submittal of DMRs from a permittee. These data issues can be pretty significant contributors to our overall SNC, and we basically saw them as the low-hanging fruit. Therefore, we consider these data issues to be our highest priority and made them our primary focus for the SNC-NCI. Our approach to these data issues included numerous different statewide initiative activities. I was personally involved with a lot of the data transfer and data upload because I'm the data steward for Ohio. We worked closely with our IT folks to ensure our databases and our data collection systems were functioning properly, as well as enhance the programs and procedures that we use to upload all of our millions of data points to the federal EPA system. We worked very closely with our permittees to help them understand the reporting requirements and help them submit their data in a timely and complete manner. We also engaged in outreach efforts with the regulated community by sending some friendly reminder emails when a DMR was due and sending out non-submittal notification letters when a DMR was missed. And we also made phone calls to facilities with non-submittal issues to assist them with the reporting requirements and understand why they might not be submitting DMRs and if they're having any issues. We also, on occasion, issued expedited enforcement orders for those with some chronic non-submittal violations. Now, all of these efforts to address the data-related issues in SNC have proven to be quite effective. Before the NCI, about 10% of our facilities were in SNC for DMR non-submittal. However, as of today, we have reduced that number to about 4%. Now that we've pretty much got a handle on the data quality and the DMR non-submittal issues, we are now shifting our focus to SNC level effluent violations for the next phase of the SNC-NCI. So let's look a little deeper into the trends, the nationwide trends of the SNC-NCI. This chart depicts the SNC trend for the nation over the past 3.5 years. It shows a steady decline in the number of facilities in SNC, going from 20.3% to 10%. It's important to note that the yellow part of the bars represent the DMR non-submittal and the data quality SNC issues that I just talked about. If you look closely, you'll see that the yellow bars, the data and reporting SNC, have seen the greatest improvement in SNC since the start of this initiative. The bars really go from being pretty big to about half of their size when they started. When the initiative began in 2018, the national DMR non-submittal and reporting SNC was around 12%. And now, 5 years later, the current national DMR and reporting SNC rate is around 5.1%, which again is over a 50% reduction. So similar to how Ohio reduced their DMR and reporting SNC, this was due in large part to data cleanup exercises and quality assurance of the data by the states and US EPA, as well as education and outreach to the nation's permitted facilities and in some cases enforcement. So similar to the nation, Ohio followed certain similar trends regarding their SNC reduction. Here we have a breakdown of Ohio's current SNC rate. Our current SNC rate stands at about 10%, like I said. It is made up of 4% DMR non-submittal, 4% effluent exceedances, and 2% compliance schedule SNC. One thing I like to point out is that we often get hung up on the number of facilities in SNC. However, it's helpful to look at this from the perspective of facilities that are not in SNC. For Ohio, 90% of our universe is not in SNC, which is quite remarkable when you take into account the size of our permitted universe. All right. So what even is significant noncompliance? Before I get ahead of myself, it's important to understand the actual definition of S&C. So as the name suggests, S&C is a programmatic definition that designates the most severe and most impactful level of violation or noncompliance event. We needed a way to identify and distinguish these serious violations from the regular violations. Therefore, the term S&C was coined, and we are now able to indicate whether a violation may pose a severe threat to the environment, human health, or program integrity. There are certain criteria for a violation to be considered S&C, which I'll discuss here momentarily. So now that we know the definition of S&C and we've gone over the S&C NCI, which serves as the foundation for most of our S&C efforts by the state, we can go over the different types of S&C and what causes each type. There's 4 different types of S&C. The first one is failure to submit a discharge monitoring report, a DMR. The second type of violation that can trigger S&C is failure to meet a permit compliance milestone. The third type is violation of a formal enforcement action. And the fourth type of S&C are significant violations of permitted effluent limits. And I will describe the criteria for each of these S&C events next. So as I talked about earlier, DMR non-submittal and data quality issues was and still is our biggest S&C category for Ohio and the nation. So this is where we focus most of our efforts. The main type of DMR S&C that we see is due to late or missing discharge monitoring reports. Per your permit, DMRs are due on or before the 20th of each month following the month of sampling. So for example, if you are required to collect a sample in September, then the September sampling data is due on or before October 20th. If you're a few days late reporting your data, it's not the end of the world. You have a 30-day grace period before S&C is triggered. So for example, if you miss the October 20th deadline for your September data, you can avoid S&C as long as you get your data submitted before the 30-day grace period, which will be November 20th in this instance. The next type of DMR S&C is due to what we call frequency violations. This basically means that you did not submit the required number of samples for a certain parameter. For example, if your permit requires you to collect 4 chlorine samples, but you did not collect any at all, a non-submittal S&C violation will be triggered for that particular parameter, chlorine. However, if you submit at least one of the required samples, in this case, at least one of the 4 required chlorine samples, you will not trigger S&C. But keep in mind, submitting only one of the 4 chlorine samples, or 2 or 3, if you don't submit all 4 of them, you still won't be meeting your sampling requirements, which is considered a violation. However, the violation will not rise to the level of S&C. All right. So the next type of S&C that can occur is due to compliance schedule violations. These 3 milestones, begin construction, end construction, and achieving final compliance with your effluent limits, will trigger S&C if they are 90 days past due. So if you don't meet those milestones and you don't submit your report and all the evidence that you've completed those milestones within 90 days of the due date, you will be an S&C. Now, if you miss any other compliance milestones besides begin construction, end construction, and final compliance with your effluent limits, a violation will be triggered, but it will not rise to the level of S&C. These are the only 3 milestones that have potential for S&C if they're not completed on time. So next, I'll talk about the S&C that can be triggered by effluent limit exceedances. There's a couple types of effluent violations that can trigger S&C. The first type of S&C effluent violations are those that violate the technical review criteria, TRC. The best way to understand violations of the TRC is by giving an example. The TRC groups pollutants into 2 separate categories, conventional pollutants and toxic pollutants. Conventional pollutants can include biological oxygen demand, total suspended solids, ammonia, oil and grease, hardness, and various others. Toxic pollutants include copper, cyanide, chlorine, most organics, and almost all metals. So for a TRC S&C violation of a conventional pollutant to be triggered, a 40% exceedance of that conventional pollutant must occur in at least 2 months in a 6-month period. Likewise, for a TRC SNC violation of a toxic pollutant to be triggered, a 20% exceedance of that pollutant must occur in at least 2 months in a 6-month period. So conventional pollutants is a 40% exceedance. Toxic pollutants are a 20% exceedance. So using an example kind of makes it easier to understand. So for example, TSS is considered a conventional pollutant. And if your TSS limit is 10 milligrams per liter, 40% over that limit would be 14 milligrams per liter. So if your TSS sample is higher than 14 milligrams per liter for 2 or more months in a 6-month period, you will be an SNC. There is also another type of effluent SNC in addition to the TRC violations. This is caused by chronic effluent violations, and we refer to them as chronic violations. This basically means that it doesn't matter the amount you're over your limit or what parameter it is. If you exceed your limit in 4 or more months in a 6-month period, you will be an SNC. So that applies to any parameter and any violation, any effluent violation of any amount. If it happens in 4 more months in a 6-month period, SNC will be triggered. All right. Pretty much covers effluent SNC. So let's briefly go over violations of formal enforcement actions that can trigger SNC. Simply put, any violation of a formal enforcement action is considered SNC. Some examples of violations of an enforcement order might be failing to meet a scheduled order milestone or failure to pay a civil penalty. But no matter what, the enforcement order violation will always be SNC. So it's important to make sure that you're complying with your enforcement orders if you have one. Okay, so now that we've gone over the different causes of SNC, let's talk about what triggers at least effluent SNC. As I mentioned earlier, Ohio EPA has been working really hard to address our DMR non-submittal and data reporting SNC. But now that we've got a pretty good handle on that, we really want to focus on our effluent SNC, which really has a serious potential to cause harm to human health and the environment. But before we can address the effluent SNC, we need to know what types of effluent violations our permitted facilities are having. So we conducted this analysis on all the effluent SNC violations that occurred over the past 6 months, and we came up with the statistics in this graph. And as you can see, ammonia is the highest driver of our effluent SNC, followed by TSS, then the various disinfection elements, which consist of E. coli, chlorine, and sometimes fecal coliform. So now we know what is causing the bulk of our effluent SNC, and now we can come up with a game plan to reduce this effluent SNC, and we can help our permitted facilities come up with solutions as well to mitigate these particular effluent violations. So in addition to analyzing the different types of effluent SNC and which parameters are most frequently violated, we wanted to conduct an analysis on the types of facilities that are most frequently in SNC. The reason we did this is so we could understand if there are certain types of facilities that are experiencing more SNC than others. And if we see a certain category of facility or business that is struggling to stay in compliance, we can help these facilities address their SNC by developing a really targeted approach that is specific to that type of facility and meets their unique needs. So to analyze which types of facilities were experiencing the most SNC, we tallied up all the facilities in SNC over the last 6 months, regardless of what kind of SNC it was, DMR, effluent, or schedule, etc. And then we broke them down by facility type, which gave us the results in the graph. The easiest way to categorize our SNC facilities by type was by looking at the nomenclature of their permit number. So if you've ever paid attention to your permit number, you'll notice that it has 8 different characters, not including the star asterisk suffix. And of these 8 characters, the third one is always a letter. And this letter indicates what type of facility you have. So for example, if the third character of your permit is a V, your facility is a mobile home park. If the third character of your permit is a T, your facility is a school or hospital. And these letters that indicate what type of facility a permit covers are what make up the horizontal axis of this graph. And as you can see from the graph, the category that has the most SNC are the semi-public facilities that discharge less than 50,000 gallons per day. These are the type R facilities. The mobile home parks and industrial facilities are also experiencing a significant level of SNC. And some of the municipalities have a little higher SNC rate than others. So because there's an obvious spike in semi-publics discharging less than 50,000 gallons per day, we wanted to dig a little deeper into those facilities and figure out exactly what types they are. So what did we find when we dug a little deeper into the semi-public facilities that are having SNC? Well, they're mostly smaller mom and pop businesses like 4-H camps, restaurants, schools, marinas, motels, bars and taverns, churches, etc. And in our experience, these facilities frequently need a little extra assistance and guidance when it comes to complying with their NPDES permit. I mean, after all, NPDES permits can be quite complicated, and these mom and pop businesses often don't have the staff or resources or capital needed to maintain compliance with their permit. But now that we have a better understanding of what kind of businesses are struggling the most with SNC, we can really start providing assistance to these facilities that meets their specific needs. Moving forward, we will start to give more attention to these facilities, especially these semi-publics discharging less than 50,000 gallons per day. We're really going to hone in on their effluent SNC issues as we continue with phase 2 of the SNC NCI. So now that we've talked about what SNC is and the criteria for SNC and a little bit about SNC issues in Ohio specifically, let's take another poll. So I want to know if your facility is in significant noncompliance. And if you do know that you're in SNC, how do you know that? You can either answer yes, you received an NOV, which informed you of your SNC, or yes, you looked in ECHO, the Enforcement and Compliance History Online database, or yes, you found out through other means, or no, you are not sure whether you're in SNC or not. So pick one of these answers and we'll take a look.
Okay, I've launched the poll, so go ahead and make your selection. It looks like a lot of people have voted. If you have not, please go ahead and make your selection. Okay, I'm closing the poll and sharing the results, Lucy.
Thanks, Helen. All righty. It's pretty interesting. So not very many of you know that you're in SNC. About 30-ish% of you know if you're in SNC or not. A big 74% don't know. That's pretty interesting, but I did always suspect that most facilities weren't aware they were in SNC because you'd either have to receive an NOV or look in the ECHO database or do your own calculations or call your inspector to be able to find out if you're in SNC, which can be a lot to go through. So let's move on from that poll. Now, the next thing I want to go over is how do you find out if your facility is an SNC? So about 74% of you guys don't know if your facility is an SNC. So I do have a really quick and easy way for you to figure out whether you're an SNC or not. So how do you find out if you're an SNC? First, visit the list of NPDES permits on our website by clicking the link at the top of the slide. 2, find your permit using the search function. You can search by county, by district, or by entering keywords such as your permit number or your facility name. If you're going to enter your permit number, make sure to only enter the first 8 characters and leave off the star suffix. And lastly, the third step is to click on the compliance link under the US EPA column. This will take you to your facility's profile on the ECHO database, and ECHO stands for Enforcement and Compliance History Online. So on the next slides, I'm going to show you some screenshots of this process and what you might expect to find in ECHO. So this is the first step. This is the list of individual NPDES permits on our Ohio EPA website. This is where you'll go to find your facility and your permit. In the drop-down boxes highlighted in yellow, you can search for your facility by county or district or by keyword. Then once you find your permit, click on the compliance link, which is circled in red in the far right column. This will take you to US EPA's ECHO database. And also, on a side note, you can access a PDF copy of your permit by clicking on the link that has your permit number. So if you ever lose your permit or need a copy of it, you can come visit our list of permits on our website and download it straight from there. Now, once you click on the compliance link for your facility, you'll be taken to this landing page for the ECHO database. ECHO is available to the public and has data for all the programs like air, hazardous waste, etc., not just the NPDES program. So if you're permitted by any other program, you can view that data here as well. I won't spend a lot of time on this ECHO demonstration because there's just tons of information and features available in ECHO, and it would take an entire presentation in itself to show a full tutorial on how to navigate ECHO and all the different features. But I did just want to touch on how to use ECHO to determine if you're an SNC and some key areas to focus on. So essentially, you really want to focus on any red areas that say significant noncompliance. For this demonstration, I pulled up a random mobile home park to use as an example. And as you can see on the landing page, this facility has the red box that says significant/category 1 noncompliance. This is part of the page can give you a brief overview of some of the compliance activities that have occurred over the past 5 years. So you can get an idea of the inspections that occurred, the numbers of quarters you're in that might have SNC, any formal enforcement that has occurred, any informal enforcement like NOVs that have been issued, etc. So this is really just a 30,000-foot view of your facility's compliance overview. So now that you know, according to ECHO with this red box, that this facility or your facility might be in significant noncompliance, you can dig a little deeper into this SNC by scrolling down this page a little bit. So on that same page, if you scroll down right around the middle of the page, you'll find the 3-year compliance history by quarter. And this is where you'll get a quarterly breakdown of your overall compliance status. And any boxes that are in red, again, will indicate significant noncompliance. And below any red boxes, it'll tell you what kind of SNC you're in at that time. This table also gives a little more detail regarding the types of violations you may have had and the degree of them and when they occurred. So you can click on the link for each of these violations to drill down and get more information about each violation. So for this example, Looks like this mobile home park had some DMR non-receipt S&C in 2020, and then some effluent S&C in 2021. Looks like there was some. It also looks like there's some pretty significant ammonia effluent S&C violations right around mid 2021. So let's take a closer look at these ammonia violations. Once you click on that ammonia violation link, it'll take you to this drill down of any ammonia violations that occurred during a given time period of your choice. So here's the drill down of the ammonia violations for this mobile home park. Basically, each purple point is an effluent violation. You can hover over each of these purple points to see exactly what the reported value was and when it occurred. There's a few more things you can look into here to drill down even further. It just depends on the level of detail you really want to get into. And on a side note, as I mentioned earlier, we collect millions and millions of data points each year, and we transfer all this data to US EPA's database in ECHO. And every now and then, there might be a slight glitch or error in the transfer of this data to ECHO. So if you're looking at your facility on ECHO and you see something that doesn't look quite right, you can reach out to me directly and I will look into it. I personally handle the ECHO data discrepancies for Ohio, and I can make any corrections to the data that might be necessary. So keep in mind, if you find something that seems a little out of place, just let me know. Alrighty. So now that you know how to find your facility in ECHO and figure out whether you're in S&C and what type of S&C you might be in, let's take another poll question related to those of you that might be in S&C now or have been in S&C in the past. So if your facility is in S&C, have you searched for a compliance assistance anywhere? You can choose one or more answers, and your options are, yes, you've used compliance assistance within Ohio EPA, like the Compliance Assistance Unit, or yes, you've participated in the Technical Assistance Webinar Series from US EPA, or yes, you've received assistance elsewhere, like from a consultant, or other. So go ahead and select your answer.
Okay, I've launched the poll, so go ahead and make your selections. And for those of you who think none of the above apply, you can actually just put that in your Q&A or your question pane and let us know. And it looks like a lot of people have already voted. If you have not, go ahead and please make your final selections. And I will be closing the poll shortly. And sharing the results. There you go, Lucy.
All right, thank you, Helen. So this was pretty interesting. I'm a little surprised to see that actually 21% of you have received compliance assistance from Ohio EPA. I think that's fantastic, and I think it's amazing that you guys have taken advantage of some of the great resources we have. Not a lot of people are aware of the wealth of assistance and resources we have available, or else I think more people would actually take advantage of them. I know we plugged the Compliance Assistance Unit earlier at the beginning of this presentation, but I do want to give them a quick plug again. CAU, the Compliance Assistant Unit, offers free and confidential assistance. And not only do they help you with technical issues and plant troubleshooting, but they can also help you with reporting and administrative issues. They come to your facility and work with you face to face, right alongside you. And they really are an incredible resource, and I just can't say enough great things about them. If you're having problems at your plant, it really doesn't hurt to give CAU a call just to check it out, feel it out, see if you're interested. They are the experts in this field, and they can help you with literally anything. So that's pretty cool. I think that it's great that a lot of you have received some compliance assistance just in general. So moving along. So here's the graph, one of the graphs that we looked at a little bit earlier. We just completed phase 1 of the SNC NCI and reduced our SNC by 50%. And although this is a huge accomplishment for us as a state and the nation as a whole, there's still a lot of work to do in addressing the remaining SNC. So in this graph that we saw earlier of the nation's SNC trends, you can see that the yellow bars, which were the DMR and data issues and DMR non-receipt, really did decrease. And we really did get a lot of that taken care of and under control. However, if you look at the orange bars, these are the effluent SNC violations. And over the past 3.5 years or so, the effluent violation SNC hasn't really changed much. It hasn't gone up, it hasn't gone down. So as part of phase 2 of the SNC NCI, we're really going to focus on handling this effluent SNC. We really want to focus on what we can do to help facilities timely and appropriately address any effluent violations they may have. To do this, we're going to be doing some proactive outreach, some training, some education initiative, bulletins, where we're probably going to increase our inspections, maybe the amount of notice of violations that are issued, and even enforcement when necessary. We'll also be meeting monthly with USEPA to discuss Ohio facilities that are in SNC and what we're doing to address that SNC. Now, if we're not proactively working with these facilities in SNC at Ohio EPA, then USEPA might want to do their own inspection. So it's really important that Ohio and the regulated community that's in SNC really work closely together and try to avoid having USEPA go visit their site. So now that we know pretty much everything there is to know about SNC, it's important to take proactive measures to avoid getting into SNC. Maintaining compliance with your permit can be pretty difficult at times, and we are definitely aware of that. But there are a few key tips that I wanted to share that can really make a difference and help you stay in compliance. The first tip is to always submit your DMRs on or before the 20th of each month. It might be helpful to set a calendar notification or a phone reminder to make sure you don't forget. And don't just blindly enter your DMR data. Really get to know your data and compare it to your permit's limits. Also, if you do have any effluent violations, make sure you notify us of that violation within 24 hours of you becoming aware of it, and let us know how you plan to address it. Not many folks are aware that that is actually a requirement of your NPDES permit to notify us of a violation within 24 hours. Next, you should know your compliance schedule requirements and the due dates for each of those compliance schedule milestones. Make sure that you have a detailed plan to meet your compliance milestones and maybe even set goals along the way to keep yourself on track. Also, submit your updates and reports on time. It might help to set calendar reminders or phone notifications as well. If you know you won't be able to meet one of your compliance milestone deadlines, or if you have a change in plans and need more time, just reach out to your inspector and let them know the situation. They'll work with you to come up with a plan for compliance and can possibly grant you an extension depending on the circumstances. Similarly, you should know the requirements that are in any formal enforcement schedule. It's very important to make sure that you stay on track with these enforcement orders and take the necessary steps to return to compliance. Again, if you're struggling to meet the requirements of your enforcement order, please reach out to your inspector. They'll be more than happy to help you find a solution. Next, one of the most important things you can do to stay in compliance is to pay attention to any effluent violations you may have. Really get familiar with your discharge and understand what's normal for your plant. Effluent violations can be a key indicator that something might not be working in your treatment system. So it's really quite important to dig into the cause of any effluent violations and to come up with a plan to proactively prevent them from occurring in the future. And last, but certainly not least, one of the best things you can do is communicate with your inspector. We really are here to help you at Ohio EPA. Our inspectors and staff are eager to help you maintain compliance with your permit and to help you stay out of S&C. We'll work with you as much as you need us to. However, do keep in mind that compliance is a two-way street. If we're unaware that you're having issues, then we won't be able to help you. Say you're having technical issues with your plant, or you're struggling to meet a certain effluent limit, or you just need help submitting some reports. Please reach out to your inspector and let them know what's going on. They are more than happy to provide you with an abundance of tools and technical assistance and troubleshooting and tons of other information and resources. We are here to help you, not to punish you. The days of the big bad EPA ruling with an iron fist are over. So please just take advantage of the knowledge and resources that your inspector has available. Alrighty. Well, that pretty much concludes my presentation about S&C. So to wrap things up, we have a few handouts available. 3 of the handouts are called compliance advisories and were developed by US EPA as part of the S&C NCI. The first compliance advisory, called Compliance Tips for Small Mechanical Wastewater Treatment Plants, describes tips and tricks to help small wastewater treatment plants stay in compliance, as the name might suggest. The second compliance advisory handout is titled Clean Water Agencies, Increasing Attention to Significant Noncompliance Discharges. And this one goes into detail about the S&C NCI that we talked about today. And the third compliance advisory, titled Compliance Tips for Small Wastewater Treatment Lagoons with Clean Water Act Discharge Permits, gives some operational tips and tricks for wastewater treatment plants with lagoons. And lastly, the final handout we included is regarding US EPA's Technical Assistance Webinar Series. This just has the details for some upcoming webinars held by US EPA that you might find helpful in maintaining compliance with your permit. So, I really want to thank everybody for attending today. I hope you got something out of this and maybe learned a little bit of something about S&C or maybe some tips and tricks on how to proactively stay in compliance or handle your S&C and just get the most out of your permit. Hopefully you learned something you didn't know before. So again, thank you everyone for attending today, and I really appreciate your attendance. So back to you, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. We're now going to answer some questions that were submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. If we don't answer your question during the Q&A portion, we will reach out to you via email after today's session. So our first question is, since this national compliance initiative, the reducing the rate of significant noncompliance began, have there been any regulatory or definition changes?
Yes, actually, just a few months ago, they changed the criteria for DMR non-submittal S&C and how long S&C will last for a DMR non-submittal S&C violation. If you had a DMR non-submittal S&C violation, you used to be in compliance for 2 years. And as part of the S&C NCI, they decided to change that and reduce it to just 1 year. So that's really been impactful and really been a good help and made such a difference with our program and with our permittees to make sure that they're not staying in compliance in S&C for over 2 years because of maybe one DMR non-submittal violation.
Okay, the next question is, what could happen to my facility if I am in significant noncompliance for effluent violations?
Well, you will If you're an S&C for effluent violations, you'll likely become a target for an inspection and maybe even enforcement if you can't seem to get your issues under control. Ohio EPA will most likely be the one doing this inspection. However, sometimes US EPA can jump in if they feel it's necessary.
And when does this initiative end?
So phase 1 of the S&C NCI ended in August 22, just last month. But some parts of the S&C are most likely going to continue. And we're going to have phase 2. And as I kind of talked about earlier, at least with Ohio, phase 2 for us is going to focus on those effluent violations.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lucy, for your great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for attending this 2022 Virtual Compliance Assistance Conference. Before we end the session today, we'd like to point your attention to another today environmental fun fact. On this slide, we're highlighting Ohio EPA's Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention, also known as OCAP, and OCAP's toll-free compliance assistance hotline. This hotline staffed from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, whenever Ohio EPA's offices are open. We also have a live chat feature available during these same hours. Both of these services are a great way to reach out for us, for answers on your environmental regulation and permitting questions. You can scan the QR code on this slide and get more information about our hotline and chat feature. And then lastly, Ohio EPA hosts a series of webinars throughout the year on a variety of environmental topics. This slide provides information on how to register for these upcoming webinars, where to find recordings of previous webinars, and how to sign up to receive notifications of upcoming webinars through our Ohio EPA Customer Support Center. And with that, again, thank you to our presenter, Lucy, today. And we're really glad that you joined us, and we hope that you're able to join us for other conference sessions. Thank you, and have a great day.